Leon Trotsky, the man Stalin, chased across 3 continents to kill with an ice axe. Stalin exiled him, stripped his citizenship, and had nearly every person close to him murdered. Trotsky still wasn't safe. He fled to Mexico, built a fortified compound, survived a machine gun assault on his own bedroom. Weeks later, a man he'd let into his own study drove an ice axe into his skull. Leon Trotsky had been one of the central architects of the 1917 Russian Revolution, standing alongside Vladimir Lenin as one of the Bolshevik movement's most significant leaders, and organizing and commanding the Red Army during the subsequent Russian Civil War with genuine, considerable military and organizational skill that proved instrumental to the Bolsheviks' eventual consolidation of power. Following Lenin's death in 1924, Trotsky emerged as the primary rival to Joseph Stalin in the resulting power struggle over the Soviet Union's future leadership, a political conflict Trotsky ultimately lost decisively as Stalin systematically outmaneuvered him within the Communist Party's internal political structure. By 1929, Stalin had consolidated sufficient power to formally exile Trotsky from the Soviet Union entirely, beginning a period of international wandering that would eventually take Trotsky through Turkey, France, and Norway, as Stalin's government applied sustained diplomatic pressure on each successive host country to expel him, before Trotsky finally secured asylum in Mexico in 1937, settling into a fortified compound in the Mexico City suburb of Coyoacán with the support of Mexican artist Diego Rivera, who had arranged his initial asylum. Stalin's campaign against Trotsky extended considerably beyond mere political exile, as Soviet secret police systematically hunted down and murdered numerous former associates, family members, and political allies connected to Trotsky throughout the 1930s, part of the broader, brutal political purges consuming Soviet society during this period, while Trotsky himself, formally stripped of Soviet citizenship and denounced as a traitor to the revolution he had personally helped lead, continued writing and publishing extensive political criticism of Stalin's government from his Mexican exile, a continued public opposition Stalin viewed as a persistent, unacceptable ideological threat requiring permanent elimination. In May of 1940, a Soviet-organized assassination team, led by a Spanish communist operative and NKVD agent, launched a direct armed assault on Trotsky's fortified Coyoacán compound, spraying his bedroom with machine gun fire in a nighttime attack that, remarkably, Trotsky and his wife survived by taking cover beneath their bed as bullets tore through the walls around them. An assault that killed a young guard stationed at the compound, but failed in its primary objective, forcing Soviet intelligence to develop a considerably more patient, methodical alternative approach to completing the assassination. This alternative plan centered on Ramon Mercader, a Spanish-born NKVD agent operating under a carefully constructed false identity, who had spent months systematically cultivating a genuine personal relationship with a woman named Sylvia Agaloff, an American Trotsky supporter with legitimate, trusted access to Trotsky's inner circle, using this romantic relationship specifically to gradually establish his own credibility and eventual direct personal access to Trotsky himself. A deliberately patient, long-term infiltration strategy that stood in stark contrast to the earlier failed direct assault. Mercader gradually gained Trotsky's genuine personal trust over several months, eventually being granted direct access to Trotsky's private study under the pretense of having written a political essay he wanted Trotsky's professional opinion on. On August 20th, 1940, Mercader visited Trotsky's study carrying a concealed ice axe beneath his coat, and while Trotsky was reading through the pages Mercader had brought him, Mercader struck him from behind with the weapon, driving it into Trotsky's skull in an attack that, remarkably, didn't immediately kill him, since Trotsky, despite the severity of his wound, was able to fight back and call for help, allowing guards to subdue Mercader before he could complete a second strike or escape the compound. Trotsky died from his injuries the following day, on August 21, 1940, having survived long enough to provide investigators with a direct, detailed account of the attack itself, before ultimately succumbing to the severity of his wound. Mercader, captured at the scene, was tried and convicted of murder by Mexican authorities, serving nearly 20 years in a Mexican prison before his eventual release in 1960, at which point he traveled directly to the Soviet Union, where he was awarded the Hero of the Soviet Union Medal, the country's highest honor, personally presented in a private ceremony specifically kept out of public record, given the Soviet government's continued official denial of any direct involvement in orchestrating Trotsky's assassination. Mercader's specific identity and his direct connection to Soviet intelligence remained a matter of continued speculation and investigation for years following his release, complicated significantly by his continued use of false identities and the Soviet government's sustained, deliberate effort to obscure his genuine background and the operation's full command structure, details that only became more fully, definitively documented decades later following the Soviet Union's collapse and the subsequent gradual declassification of relevant intelligence archives. What makes Trotsky's assassination endure as one of history's most significant political killings isn't simply the scale of the operation required to finally succeed after an earlier failed direct assault, though the genuine sophistication and patience of Mercader's months-long infiltration operation remains remarkable, but the specific, chilling demonstration the case provided regarding exactly how far a totalitarian state was willing to go to eliminate a single ideological rival, pursuing him across multiple countries and continents over more than a decade, and ultimately succeeding only through an assassin willing to spend months building a genuine, trusted personal relationship with his target's own inner circle, specifically to gain the direct access no conventional attack had been able to achieve. If stories like this, where a political rivalry pursued across continents and years ended with a single, patient act of betrayal from someone the victim had genuinely come to trust, are exactly what you come here for, subscribe to The Grave Details, because history holds more stories like this than most people will ever know.